Alright, so in the last couple of weeks or so, we have been seeing a lot of news and rumors regarding the Final Fantasy IX Remake. And even the biggest non-believers at this point are starting to come around to this idea that yes, indeed, the game is actually happening and the announcement of it is actually around the corner. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the potential release date for the trailer of the game and also the actual release date for the game itself. And then I also want to chime into these internet speculations about the remake's game direction, as some people have been speculating it will be like Rebirth and Remake, some people are saying it's a HD remaster, some people are saying it's not going to be turn-based anymore, it's going to be split into multiple games. Well, I will be giving my own professional analysis on that. But before we do that, before we go into my actual bingo list of predictions, let's talk about a bit of the initial leaks that came out. So the story kind of started out back in 21 when we had the infamous Nvidia leaks, which consisted of maybe like 40 to 50 games from different AAA studios, Square Enix being one of them, and basically 95% of those games in that Nvidia list have been released so far, and all the games also in Square's list have been released except Final Fantasy IX Remake and Tactics Remaster. So that has been one of the biggest points of evidence that the game has been in the making for quite some time now. Now, then also in that same year, there was the announcement of the animated series by a French animation studio known as Cybergroup Studios. There has been a lot of people calling it an anime. That's definitely what it wouldn't have been. It would have gone into a 3D style akin to a lot of the other works by Cybergroup Studios. Then back in 22, we had the video by Paolo, which went into the daily life of a Japanese game illustrator working at Square Enix. And there were parts in this video which were kind of alluding into Final Fantasy IX. There was like a figurine that was worked on about with Kuja and Zidane. So there were a lot of like bit of Easter eggs in that video, which kind of alluded into a potential new game being worked on, which could have been Final Fantasy IX Remake at that conjuncture. Then there was about Sakaguchi coming out of retirement, talking about a project working with Square Enix, and that definitely could be Neo Dimension 2. It definitely wasn't the remastered version of it because they didn't do that many changes on it to, justify Sakaguchi coming out and doing something. So he might be involved with the 9 remake, definitely. So that's one of the theories going around at this point. Or it could be totally new IP or sequel to some other game. And then we obviously had more of the recent claims coming out from a multitude of different people in these leaking websites talking about, hey, it's making. And then just in these weeks, we had the news about the anniversary, and we had the anniversary website, which also talked about this prequel novel about Vivi and his story before he came into Alexandria. They also were talking about a vinyl and everything like that. So in terms of when years are considered, it would be a pretty good year to basically do an announcement like this. So let's jump into these predictions, starting off with the trailer. I think the trailer will be initially shown at Summer Game Fest on June 6th. And this would make a lot of sense as this is a neutral platform not dedicated to a specific console, and also there has been historically other world premieres at this event. If it's not going to be shown at this event, it could also happen on July 7th, which is the original release date for the game in Japan. Then later down this year, there might be another State of Play in summer, and obviously Final Fantasy XVI was first showcased on State of Play, so that's one reason we could see it also on Sony's platform. And then at the very end of the year on Q4, we also do have Gamescom, but that's definitely not going to be it. There's Tokyo Game Show, that could be one potential place, and one of the most likeliest by the end of the year would also be the Game Awards. But I really do actually believe that the release of the trailer is going to be happening this summer. So let's now go into my second prediction, which is that this game is going to be released on Nintendo Switch 2. It is not going to have any exclusivity on release. It's going to be released on Switch 2, it's going to be on PS5 and the latest Xbox, and then it's going to be maybe a few months after on PC, as they're probably going to be working on mod support for PC, so maybe a few months after the release. So there's not going to be any exclusivity on the release. That is my real belief, as Square has expressed multiple times in the recent past, that they have no intention of doing these exclusivity deals, as it kind of hurts the sales. It's better to have sales on multiple platforms. Now, what comes into the actual release date for the game? I actually believe it's going to be 26 summer or the end of Q1. And reason why is because Final Fantasy VII's last trilogy part is going to be releasing in 27. They have nothing coming out in terms of AAAs in 26. Kingdom Hearts 4 and Dragon Quest 12 have no release dates. They too could be actually announced this year, which would mean they would also get released next year. So all of these games are likely going to be happening in 26. I don't think, or very end of 25, but that is very unlikely at this point. I don't see them having only a 6-month promotion window, as most AAA games are first unveiled and then year after, roughly, they basically launch. So this would be the most estimated pattern. So in terms of the graphical direction, which has been hotly discussed by the community, all of our sources are saying that this is going to be a AA game, not a AAA game, which means it is not going to be going for Unreal Engine's hyperrealism look. So this is not going to be looking like Rebirth or Final Fantasy XVI. I think it's going to be looking a lot more like Kingdom Hearts 3, World of Final Fantasy, and the Memoria project. How colorful exactly from the original remains to be seen, or are they going to be remaining a bit of those darker colors with them? And it's also certain that at some point there was another studio that was working on this game, so it was outsourced to somebody, and then Square came in like, we're not satisfied with these results and we're doing this game ourselves, which explains this long delay for this game. And also, by going with these more simple graphical directions, allows them to basically do the whole game inside a one game instead of splitting it apart. Now, in case I am wrong with this prediction, there is a possibility that the game will be split in two if it's going for a bit more realistic and like more freer camera angles and a bit more ambitious project. I could see them breaking down the game in two. The first game basically would be ending on Leaf Tree at the end of disc 2. That would make a lot of sense. But then the second game probably would have a lot more extra content in case they're going to be doing two games, and that would probably mean like new mini games, new areas perhaps, and maybe more expanded scenes. But I'm still kind of leaning towards it being on this AA game done on a one disc and one game. Now, in terms of the combat, I do believe it actually is going to be turn-based, and reason why is because turn-based takes less dev time to actually do. We're talking about 8 characters here, and the reason why Vincent and Sid were not playable in Rebirth because it would have taken more time to basically create whole new characters with their unique abilities and etc. And especially because we have 3 caster characters like Garnet, Eiko, and Vivi, it would make a lot of sense to basically have characters which are ranged in this style of a combat, and especially because the summons are restricted to 2 different characters, it just wouldn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion, to go for action combat. But I do think that they're going to be doing a lot of adjustments into this turn-based system in terms of like adding new elements, like maybe like slot reels, what they had in Final Fantasy VII and 10, and kind of like stuff that they have on Legend of Dragoon when you like do auto attacks. So there's going to be more interaction on that active time battle, in my opinion. Now also, I want to say that this is definitely going to be voiced. I would be very shocked if they actually didn't do that. So voice acting is definitely going to be on cards. I hopefully do that they're going to be getting all the best voice actors for these roles, because some of these characters are going to be pretty hard to voice act, in my opinion. Going to be very hard to make a casting for Vivi or Quina, for example. Now also, I'm going to be expecting to see a bit of a rework on Tetramaster. It's going to be kind of like Queen's Blade, not in that it will be copied, but I'm saying that it's going to be more prominent throughout the game. You're probably going to be unlocking it earlier, and there's going to be more matches and more games and battles you can do in Tetramaster in this game. Another rework that they will be basically doing is probably revolving around the chocobos. So the chocobos are not going to be going all of those autistic things. I do believe that they're going to be still doing the world map, by the way. And because of that, I think they're going to be doing a lot of these quality of life changes. So the chocobos are going to be a lot more streamlined, and the quests are going to be more sensible, and if there's going to be any. So that's going to be changing a bit. Now let's get into the last half of these predictions, and these are going to be a lot more wild cards. These are things that I'm not 100% sure about, and these are just kind of like thrown in here for the memes or anything like that. The first one being the actual ending. I think they're going to be changing a lot of things about the ending. So when the original game was being made, they actually did skim some content from the actual end parts of the game. So I think Memoria as a level is going to be longer, and there's going to be maybe more segments in terms of the story inside it. And also the very ending scenes, like how the Vivi's kids came to be, like there's going to be some adjustments on the ending. Don't get me wrong, I think they're really going for a one-to-one recreation of the story here, and there's not really going to be that many drastic and radical changes like we had on Final Fantasy VII. So none of that wacko chacko stuff. So this is going to be very conservative, of the story. It's just going to be adding more context into some things. The second prediction I have about the story is that we're going to be seeing more of Amarant's background story. We know from a couple of interviews that there were some concepts about him, his own side quest storylines, which were cut out from the game. So I actually believe that he's going to be getting a bit more limelight on this remake, because he is getting very, very low amount of screen time compared to a lot of the other characters. He has a very low exposure in general. And then another character that's going to be seeing some action is going to be Eiko. I don't think here as a character is getting that much, but I do believe that we are going to be getting more of the summoner lore, more flashbacks. We're going to be learning more about Madain Sari, like kind of how we in Final Fantasy VII, we learned a lot more about the Ancient on Remake and Rebirth. There's a lot more lore about them. And the summoners are kind of interesting in my opinion, and we're going to be exploring a bit more of that, perhaps in this remake. And the last story changes are going to be rolling around Necron. And yeah, I think there's going to be maybe some foreshadowing for Necron. Like he's maybe going to be appearing in some, I don't know, like a nightmare of some character or some weird flashback or see him some weird scene. They're going to be doing a bit more build up for him. Or they're going to be totally changing his last battles. And maybe he's going to be removed altogether and Kuja is going to be fusing with Necron. It could be a lot of things, but I think they're going to be changing a lot of those stuff. Then we have Ozma, and this boss has no lore, by the way. It's like just a weird thing, which was probably just like, hey, we got some random textures, let's create this ball model, and then just throw the textures on it, and hey, we got this biggest final secret boss in this game. This is definitely going to change. Ozma is going to get a new model, something a bit more interesting, and perhaps is going to be, this is going to be like a bit more fleshed out story fight, or maybe he will be removed altogether. I wouldn't be too surprised about it, because this is definitely the most non-iconic alternative boss fight that you can go for, like, which makes lore-wise no fucking sense. So that's one. Then I would also maybe believe that they're going to be adding a new character. Not a new playable character, but they are going to be introducing some new character akin to what we have of Roche or Kairi in Final Fantasy VII Remake, which will be making some cameos throughout the game. And I think a lot of some other minor characters might be, meant to be appearing a lot more throughout the game also. So there might be some minor tweaks there, especially if they decide to break the game in 2 parts or in some very drastic sense 3 parts. There is definitely going to be more side characters added then. But if it's going to be very traditional integration of the original game, I'm not going to be seeing that there's going to be any new characters, but it could be possible. Next prediction is that the actual animation is cancelled. It's not going to happen. I think they were originally trying to do cross-promotion. So here we got this cool animated show now. People are seeing it, and now they want to buy the game. And there were obviously some rumors that this cartoon was supposed to be for very like toddlers or something like that, for a very young audience, which was kind of shaky and a bit interesting, like how that would have basically turned out. Would that convert the people to be gamers? So would Final Fantasy Remake ended up being super casual game or something like that? Remains to be seen, but I think this is now cancelled, as they have been on a lot of financial problems, and I think this might be also one of the reasons why there has been delays for Final Fantasy IX Remake, as they have been reconstructing these things and plans regarding the animated show, which might also get unveiled on June 6th alongside with the trailer, but who knows. Then my final crazy prediction is that Beatrix would become a playable character, and I can see a lot of good reasons why this is a bad idea, especially given the fact that her abilities are very similar to Steiner, so that would not bring a new niche or anything, and especially if they are not going to go for the turn-based combat, they are definitely not adding new characters here, because it would be too much work. But I kind of could see her being added into the party in like end of disc 3 and that type of area, because I don't think she's doing anything important at that conjuncture of the game, so she could kind of be written into the party in my opinion. But then again, like, this is highly unlikely, but in a way I could kind of see it happen. But that's basically my crazy prediction for Final Fantasy IX Remake, and I do hope that we get some news soon. We see how right I was or how wrong I was, and I would love to see your guys' predictions and beliefs. What type of a remake will it be, when it will be out, what is the combat, what do you want to see, and etc. And that's basically what I have to share with you guys today. See you on the next video. Cheers.